Hello. Before I get on to the main topic of this video, I'm going to ask you, do you feel dapper? Just as a reminder, it's depression, anxiety, panic attacks, and paranoia energetically resolved. The door's open, it just expands on what I say on these videos, which is totally free. But if you are struggling and want a more in-depth perspective, because that's all I can give you is a perspective based on personal experiences, on things I've witnessed, basically helping you find those car keys that you can't find. They're always the last place we look. But sometimes it's just perspective on things and being able to say, hold on a moment, things aren't as bleak as they seem. I can see a glimmer of light in your specific situation, and there is a way to get through it. So links are in, and details are in the description as always on these videos, but we'll now get on to the main topic of this video. As I said at the end of the last video, it would be about an actor. Well, not just an actor, a producer and a director, and just a very brief overview. Think of this like a tarot card reading or astrology. I can only give you a personal perspective from what is revealed in what I see. Make of it what you will. So the character I'm talking about here is Mel Gibson. This is not in any way my area of expertise. For example, I can't give you ciphers and things. I would suggest someone like Logan. To do this real justice would take someone like Yolanda of True Love Channel to, like she's done with Johnny Depp, to do with this actor. And this is Mel Gibson. I thought he was actually Australian, but looking at the wiki history of him, apparently he was born in the United States and at the age of 12 went over to Australia with his parents. But his full name, Mel, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Columcille, or Columcille, it's Columcille. It's a very unusual forename. And then there's another forename, Gerard, and the surname Gibson. So if we take the initials MCGG, for some of you that might be a purple flag going off already. But if we give them the numeric values of the alphabet, M is 13, C is 3, G is 7. So you have a sequence of 1, 3, 3. So you've got a 33, 133, and then you have a 77. The sum of those four numbers comes to 21. He was born on the 3rd of January 1956. So you've got 3, you've got 1 for January. If we take the 5 and 6, you've got 3, 1, 1, 1 being shown there. If we add in the 1 and the 9, but we still combine the 5 and the 6, you get 3, 1, 1, 9, 1, 1. Make of that what you will. Now this is interesting as well. He was born in a place called Peekskill in New York, United States. Well, straight away another purple flag as opposed to a red flag, as it were. Peekskill. That sort of implies, is it just coincidence? Peak skill. A skill in being able to see through the veil, perhaps? Why do I say this? Well, I'm going to give you a very, very brief overview on his career. Apparently he's now, well, he'd be 68 now. It's hard to imagine because I associate him most with the Mad Max films, which is, prior to that, he was in a film called Gallipoli. I think it was an Australian film, so it's probably not that well known. And it's about the Australian army involved in the First World War and a disastrous battle at Gallipoli. And I've not seen the film, but in the sort of overview about the story, it's about young men seeing the sort of true picture of war and the horrors of it. That sort of starts a theme that sort of unfolds when we look further into this. We now move on to what he's probably most well known for, Mel Gibson, which is the Mad Max films. The character name is Max Rokatansky. So it's Rockatansky. So in that you have Max Rock. You've got an anagram basically of Satan and key, because you've got Rock Atan Sky. Is that coincidence? I'll leave that for you to decide. Now, in the Mad Max film, he starts off, he's a law enforcement officer, and through that first Mad Max film, he loses everything. He has a young family, he has a young daughter and a young wife, and this basically like a Hell's Angels gang kill them. And he's devastated, obviously, and there's an underlying theme of, although he's doing the right thing, he's become this law enforcement officer to keep the peace. And Mad Max has this very centered doing the right thing about him, about this character. But of course, in that first film, he loses everything, and then he basically goes on the rampage. And the reference to the supercharger on the car is, in a way, it's showing activating the pineal gland. You've got that super fast acceleration with that car. This suggests to me, and it's only my perspective, metaphors that can be seen in this story. So you've gone already from Gallipoli, finding out the true picture, the horrors of war. It's not glory at all. You're doing the right thing or thinking you're doing the right thing on the side of the law, and finding that the law can't protect you. And the horrifying result is he loses a young child and a young wife. And then Mad Max 2 and leading on to Mad Max 3 is basically referencing wandering around the desert aimlessly. And that time, you've got this theme basically going with Gallipoli onwards. You've got realizing something's not right with this world. Realizing what we're told is doing the right thing really isn't, and is not helping you at all. When we get to Mad Max 3, which stars Tina Turner, it's called Mad Max Beyond the Thunderdome, and it has the slogan, 2 men enter, 1 man leave. So in this post-apocalyptic world, the differences are sorted out within this dome between the two, so it doesn't become a full-scale war. And it alludes to corruption and things being run by an underworld in Bartertown, and like a corrupt system that wants control of the underworld. There's sort of duality thing going on there. But you've also got the reference to the 2 hemispheres of the brain, of the mind, coming, 2 men enter, 1 man leave. We mustn't forget also, I'm not sure of the chronology of this particular film, it's called What Women Want. I've got a very vague memory of that film, in which he is able to read the thoughts rather than hearing the words of women, and it's like, how can he understand us? He knows. Again, it seems suggesting to me that it's referencing to see things from the perspective of the divine feminine inside yourself. What else have we got? Oh yes, Braveheart, in which Mel Gibson produced, directed, and starred in that film. Need I say more? Just the title of the film, Braveheart. That again seems another clue. Then, what was quite a controversial film, but taking the literal story of the crucifixion, how graphic the horror and the suffering is shown in that. Again, I feel that follows on this theme, as if you start going down this spiritual route, how you face these unpleasantries, you feel like you've hit rock bottom, and then you've got to crawl your way out to let go of belief systems and things, which is your crucifix. There's another film in 2006 produced and directed by Mel Gibson called Apocalypto. Again, it's not a film I've seen. I understand it's set in the 16th century, the end of the Mayan civilization, or something along those lines. It's certainly a film I feel I'd like to watch, and I'm sure if I was to go through all these films all over again and actually watch them, I could break them down into videos, but it's more sort of thing I hope True Love Channel will take up the invitation, because I feel there's an awful lot more that I've not even, I am barely skimming the surface on all of this. Not only that, I only have a cell phone to use, so it's only a tiny screen. Even turning it onto landscape, it's a bit of a strain on the eyes, because it's not natural lighting, it's backlighting. See the mirror thing being shown and reflected? What I've also forgotten to mention, another series of films that Mel Gibson was in was Lethal Weapon with Danny Glover. Now, probably the most famous part is in the first Lethal Weapon. He's an ex-Vietnam veteran with psychological problems, also he's diagnosed. There's some very powerful lines in that. And it's, as a side note, it's very interesting. Danny Glover says, just get him down, referring to this man who's threatening to jump off the top of this building. His world's over. And Mel Gibson does get him down. He does it by jumping with him. It's referencing again Two Men Enter. And taking a fall. He's already fallen where he's lost everything in Mad Max, losing his young family. So you've got another theme of falling going on here, of coming down. And it's interesting, Danny Glover plays a very similar part in Predator 2, where he's chasing the predator, and he has to overcome his fear of heights. He has to overcome something that's actually quite irrational and master that fear and embrace it and use it as more like an adrenaline to get you to do what you are fearful of. And I thought that was interesting. It's Danny Glover in a role of a senior detective who's getting towards the end of his career, as it were, and this thing about heights and jumping. So, a very powerful film, I've only seen the trailer for it, is Hacksaw Ridge, 2016, in which Mel Gibson was the director, based on a true story of a man who refuses to fight. I mean, the cynical thing would be say, well, he could just join the Red Cross attachment of an army. But he goes it alone. He ends up in the awful position of being on the battlefield, on the front line, completely unarmed, because he refuses to pick up a gun and shoot. But he's the one that is pulling off his comrades. They've given him hell and called him a coward and mentally and physically abused him for not picking up a gun. The peer pressure is enormous. Some of you may remember having a similar experience in 2020 if you were going into a supermarket and there was something very distinctive about you, should we say, not on your face. And that kind of feeling, that's sort of reflected in this film Hacksaw Ridge. Also think a hacksaw, it's a fine line. It's also referencing the W and the M again. But what's also played out is the sort of biblical story about walking along the beach, you look behind, there's only one set of footsteps. Where his comrades who've maybe lost limbs or they're just left for dead on the battlefield, he's gone onto the battlefield being shot at against all odds, doing the unthinkable, referencing earlier videos I've made recently. He's saved the lives of 40 or 50 people, and he is a true hero. And look what that is referencing, lead by example. So Mel Gibson, whatever you think of the world of Hollywood, and you know, that's down to you. But what I'm saying here is what I see is a pattern in his film career as an actor, as a producer, and as a director that is giving a story, and give is the key word here. If we take the name Mel Gibson, so it's me, L, Gib. Gib is from the German to give son. Me, L, give son. To me, what this lifetime career and the pattern of these films, I've not mentioned all the films, there was another one here, Edge of Darkness. Again, just the name of the film, I know nothing about it, it's not one I've seen, from 2010. Edge of Darkness, the reference back to the falling, stepping into the unknown in the Lethal Weapon films. And there's a very powerful scene where he has an argument with Danny Glover after jumping, handcuffing himself to this guy that's threatening to jump, and he said, "Come on, we'll do it together." Look at that in the metaphysical, the coming together as one, and also reflected in Hacksaw Ridge. So I feel Mel Gibson is relaying a message to humanity. This is the sort of thing True Love Channel talks about look at what these stars are really showing. Look at what, or listen to what I've just said, look at what these stars are really showing. Consider astrology and stars, and now Hollywood stars. The mirror, perhaps. One is in the material, one is in the immaterial, in the space. Because when you think about it, the ratio of stars to space between the stars, which is the greater and which is always pointed to and which is always largely forgotten. Mustn't forget the empty spaces, because they're not empty. They reveal a lot in themselves. And as I've said before, if you're struggling to figure out what something means, consider its opposite, its counterpart. So lock down, go within and meditate, isolate, be happy in your own skin. It's just the same story, but coming out in a opposite polarity. And in that is a big clue that if you follow this sort of line of these films, we go through these phases of realizing things aren't right with the world, losing everything, hitting that rock bottom, that Rokitansky moment, becoming a Martin Riggs, which is the character Mel Gibson plays in Lethal Weapon. I've not broken it down, but I'm sure Martin will have a meaning. For a start, it has in contained within Martin. It has the word art. It implies martyr, which the Braveheart film, doesn't it get executed or something? So it's playing different roles. It's leading by example that is being shown here, I feel. And the decode on his name, the decode on the numeric values of things that I could see in that. And I know nothing about ciphers. I'm a complete novice. As I said, a channel like Logan, I hope would take this up, and I hope True Love Channel will take this up. And I also extend this out to, is it Rebecca Barron, Find the Light RB channel. If you could communicate in the way you can with Mel Gibson, it would be interesting to see if this is confirmed in what I'm seeing, that there's a pattern within the chronology of these stories that Mel Gibson has either acted in, or he has produced or directed, or all three, in the case of Braveheart. That seems to suggest the sort of the midpoint as well within his career. I mean, the man's 68. I seem to remember he's a grandfather to 30 grandchildren, so I should imagine he's financially quite self-sufficient, shall we say, and good luck to him. I have enormous respect from this perception. I'm not saying that is what it is. I'm just giving you a personal perception here on what I'm seeing in this. But I feel there is a lot of value in looking at these things, looking at sequences, looking for patterns in things, or not so much looking, but allowing these things to come to you. That's how I've sort of put this together. It just started really with Mel Gibson and just seeing me, L, give son. The implication being that Mel Gibson is, shall we say, an angel that has taken a human form, that has come into this reality, knowing full well that there's only one way to separate spirit from matter. This is what I've not really said as such about Junus. It's another aspect. That is like an external second coming. Everything is in hand, and it really is. Around this Dyson shell is a great big hand, metaphorically speaking, not a physical hand. Everything is contained in here, even if it was the biggest atomic bomb that would completely obliterate whatever your view is of what the universe is and what is shown as being out there and up there. It doesn't matter. But even an explosion of that magnitude, it would still be contained. There would be no loss of energy. There would be nothing added. There would be nothing taken away. The only thing really is to overcome the fear. And it's interactive, so leads by action, doing what is right, regardless of what you're faced with, which again references back to pretty much all these films that Mel Gibson has been in one way or another, either as an actor, as a star in that film, or as the producer, or just as the director. There's a theme that runs through this that I feel is certainly worth further investigation by, hopefully, any channels. I welcome you to take this up and see what else can be gleaned from this. If we're all singing from the same song sheet, it's a chorus, so it's a core of us. Between us, we can uncover a lot more. which may be the avenue that will help others to have that aha moment that breaks them through the perceived veil and shows that there is far more to this reality. It's certainly not what we've been told it is. It's certainly not what the physical five senses in the external are telling us it is. I've seen enough proof and experienced enough things. I've seen ripple effects of energy. I've seen how things can change in the blink of an eye. So I have no doubt that where this is ultimately leading, I can't do this on my own. I feel I can't individually generate enough energy. It is for selfish reasons, because I just want to prove this. But I feel that with a sufficient number of us, maybe just in small groups, unified, focused with an energy, that we could actually create what you would perceive as a warp in time that you could actually step through, but it would be in the blink of an eye, and you wouldn't have to go anywhere or do anything apart from just witness and see the change and be the change. I feel that is worth going for, even if, let's go with the next Phoenix event of 2040. It happens, it's an apocalyptic thing. I feel this is worth it for the run up to that, for the next 16 years or so, just to fill in the time, if nothing else. But so at least, well, to me, this has a feeling that this was intended to be like a holodeck, a place to relax and enjoy. But something has thrown the spanner in the works, or displaced a cog, which I feel is reflected in that change from 360 to 365 and a quarter days. Things are not quite in balance. But leaving aside whether it's a simulation, then as a physical being, it still feels real. So, and I would feel pain if my arm was chopped off or something, you know. So I'd rather have 16 years of something more in balance, shall we say, and go from there. So I don't know, where do we go from here? Do we fix a point in time and say, right, on this day, at this specific time, X number of people will all focus on something and manifest it? It would be an interesting experiment. It's not an experiment that hasn't been done on before, with, I think it was 1,000 people focusing on bringing down the amount of crime in a particular area of New York, and it did reduce by 25%. That's just with 1,000 people. Imagine if it was 144,000, just off the top of my head, as a number, which adds to 9, which is a completion. And it would open a door 2 numbers on from that 9, which would give you an 11, would it not? It's a representation of a stepping through between 2 sides, 2 ones, 2 pillars. I wonder how that fits in with the Great Pyramid of Giza and the pyramid that is next to it. Is there something in that as well, maybe? I don't know. That's just a bit of wild speculation that's just sort of popped into my head as I've said this. Anyway, we're up to 30 minutes almost, so I'm going to say unconditional love to you all. Do let me know in the comments how this resonates with you.